Anthony Richardson in the draft. Did he go 3? Welcome back to Change Makerz with the Z. We have a twice-weekly podcast highlighting Generation Z and the change they're trying to make to the world. I'm this week's host, Joshua Dixon. All right, so today we're going to kind of talk about student athletics, student workers in athletics, kind of their mistreatment and, what the world can do to be better. Joining me, Neff, Logan Wheeler. You two want to kind of talk about your experience and what you do?
Josh, how's it going? Yeah, so like Josh said, I'm Matt Neff. I'm a student content creator here at JMU, specifically for JMU Athletics in the Creative Services Department. I essentially just create content with the camera, video camera, more of a creative side. You see the news, you see a more traditional side of it, but what I do is more so for the social media aspect of it, creating any video that has to do more of a creative side in the sense of like a day in the life or a behind the scenes or a what goes on during the game, as well as gameplay action, stuff that's going on, say for a football game. It's all kind of just in one realm, and my department kind of just focuses on more of the social media side of it.
My name's Logan Weller, and I do very similar things, just more on the photo side, capturing game action, doing some different, like if we have a different uniform or helmet, do photos creatively, and then we also do the, when you see graphics and like cutouts, we do all those studio shoots. And yeah, that's pretty much, it's very similar what he does, just on the photo side.
Yeah. And so kind of talking about this topic overall in a broad sense, we think about student workers, usually you hear the thing, they're getting experience. They're going out there in the world and they're getting this real life experience and able to build their portfolio out. But we kind of don't hear some of the other side of, the mistreatment. We've seen it, all of us have seen it, workers working long hours. I know personally, I've worked like 50 hours a week before doing stuff, so it's definitely out there. So I guess for both of you guys are well experienced in this industry. What have you seen?
Yeah, here at JMU, I'm, very lucky to be able to be in the position I am, being paid, being able to have the opportunity to create the content I do, obviously doing something I love. And that's part of the reason why I came to JMU, to be able to have this opportunity. But when you kind of are around it, when you see it, when you're working with it firsthand, a lot of times you're able to pick up on other schools, mistreating their students, maybe more so in the sense of not caring enough or not being able to have the resources to be able to say, excuse me, hey, we're not able to pay you. So sorry about that, but like we're still going to use your resources, your ability to do it to our advantage. And a lot of the times it's not seen as something that is so-called fair. They're able to kind of get away with this style of like, hey, you're going to gain experience, you're going to be able to be in this awesome position, but you might not reap the benefits of what you're doing.
Yeah, I guess kind of talking about that, not to cut you off, just kind of going off of that, is just, using student workers because they're students, not having to pay them, not having to give them maybe what professionals in that industry are paid or what they get, but still using them to work and getting those hours and those resources.
I think it's also like a lot of the views from especially like full-time employees is like, you got to pay your dues. And so like sometimes you do work a little longer hours. I know like you just worked football during like the spring season of like 21, but like,
Yeah.
I know I worked all the sports, and there was times you were working more. I was on a practicum, so I kind of had a little more leeway, but like, I think we're somewhat lucky at JMU because like a lot of schools, he was talking about resources, a lot of schools don't provide equipment like to their students, and it's more of like what you can afford to buy and have, like that's what you use. And we have I think 5 or 6 cameras and a bunch of lenses, and then I know video has a lot of cameras and lenses for students use. And I know we both have our own equipment, but like, it's we're still college kids, so it can be tough to buy thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So, I mean, we are lucky that we have the opportunity to use really nice equipment and still use all the resources we can compared to like other schools who, because I know I've seen and met people who they're like using their own equipment, and it's not like bad equipment, but it's not what I was using that JMU, because JMU has a huge budget. I wouldn't say huge, but a decent budget to to buy stuff with.
Yeah, they definitely see in the craft, and they respect it, and they want to be able to, expand on it.
Yeah, we caught up beforehand. We kind of talked about 2 Sunbelt schools, that you've seen. The first one close by, where you kind of talked about this, where they're not given equipment. How much does that affect a student trying to build their portfolio, and when they're not paid and they don't get given that equipment?
I think it's not as bad for obviously you'll get your opportunities with it, because I think it matters for us. It's more at night. Like if you don't have good equipment at night, low light is always more difficult. During the day, you can make a lot of different equipment work if you know how to use settings. But sometimes it's, if you don't have a camera that can go down, do a certain, or more specifically a lens that can do a certain thing, then it makes it so much more difficult, because it looks a little lower quality than if you have the nicest equipment.
Yeah, no, I'd go off exactly what Logan said. I mean, equipment is a big part of it. It's kind of like that. It puts you over the top, right? You can have that creative ability. You can have, the ability to know what you're doing, to know all the ins and outs of cameras. But when you get to that point of like, hey, I'm really good at what I do, but I don't have the ability to do it. It might not be able to be seen. And sometimes a lot of schools, you might have to be using your own equipment. Maybe some that's cheaper than some of the, I guess you could say, industry standard. But industry standard is a little skewed because of how expensive this stuff is, and the aspect of being able to afford it is, it's tough, especially for college kids. So a lot of times when you're using your own equipment, sometimes the quality might not be, as good.
Yeah, kind of to pivot, we'll stay with athletic student workers, obviously topic of the day, but kind of moving over, not so much creative, right, but just in general. We saw Fairleigh Dickinson made it. March Madness had a pretty good run.
Yeah.
They had a student SID. None of us are SIDs here per se, but we all know how much they put in and how hard it is of a job. That's a full-time job.
Yeah.
You see here at JMU, a lot of those people that have SID positions, this is their second, third job. This is full blown, especially for basketball. That's a big sport usually.
Definitely.
Can you speak to a little bit of that and your opinions about that?
I mean, a lot of people were applauding him, and the actual student, good for him, but from a school perspective, that is not what you should be doing. And I know Fairleigh Dickinson is a smaller school, so they may not have the resources, but at JMU, our men's basketball SID is a director. And then our women's is an assistant director, but they're both full-time positions. They're not students. They're not even interns. So we both work with them, and we both know how much they do. We only work with them for about half of their job of putting out social media content, because they run the social media accounts. They do statistics. They write recaps. So it's a lot to do, and most of them travel with the teams. So he probably was gone for a whole lot of time, missing a whole lot of class, and that's tough on a student.
Yeah, no, I mean that's something you kind of being able to work in sports and in an athletic department, you kind of stop and you're like, wow, that's a lot of work, and we're able to see how much work goes into it only a percentage of the time, right? A lot of the times SIDs are dealing with the social media aspect side, being able to post stuff to Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of things that go on behind the scenes with updating statistics, updating the websites, being able to send out stuff to the NCAA, some of the other big time, Sunbelt, stuff like that, so that they can have their stuff updated as well after the games. So yeah, I'm sure that kid, definitely at the end of the year, said, wow, I've worked a lot, I've, done a lot, and, that is certainly more common when you see it at smaller schools. They're able to maybe more so get away with it. But here at JMU, just the sheer amount of the work and the stuff that you're having to do, it would be tough to be able to pull off.
I mean, just the travel alone, to be honest.
And also the travel.
We've both traveled with teams. You're going to lacrosse next weekend, right?
Yeah.
And I went with basketball to Florida, and I was in Florida for a week, and that was coming back and catching up with everything. I try to do as much as I can there, but you're working a whole lot when you're traveling with the team.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to miss all that. I mean, we traveled together with football, and we'd be getting back at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. sometimes, especially flying with the team. So it can be difficult to miss school and do all that and still kind of balance it out. So we would do it at a week at a time.
Yeah, and, he's probably traveling quite a bit.
Yeah, especially for those midweek games. Because when we travel for football, it's basically Friday, Saturday, and you're back.
I guess kind of going off that, I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Do you think a situation like that, where you have a student, working in a full-time position, do you feel like that's a little unfair? I mean, obviously it's great portfolio-wise, you build up the resume.
Yeah.
But do you feel like, I think unfair is the wrong word to use, but I don't know. Yeah.
It's great for his resume. He'll definitely get a job probably right out of college.
Right out of college,
especially doing that with March Madness. I know that's huge for us. If you cover a national championship or NCAA tournament, you make sure you put that on your resume. So it's gonna be great for him. But that's just difficult. Even for your own mental health and keeping your passion alive for it. It can be difficult to keep that going constantly when you're doing that and keeping up with schoolwork and trying to maintain a balance of having a social life. That can be difficult.
Yeah. Kind of to pivot a little bit, we'll go into something more positive. We talked about media. We've seen, some media staff don't provide any camera equipment. Some are so underfunded or understaffed where, people are working such long hours. But then this past week, we saw a photo release, Colorado, and their media staff, 24 members, I think, might be a little more, a little less. Partnership with Sony. What is it like when you have something so supportive like that? How good is that for a media team?
Yeah, I mean, that is that's what it should be. That's the beauty of it, just to be able to have a team like that, because you're not only being able to create great content, you're also being able to have the support, have the knowledge that if I don't get the shot, somebody else will. Having that many people and with a partnership with Sony, I'm sure they're able to get some gear and rep Sony, stuff like that. That's what you want to see, being in this position. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean you can see it in the content. You see it not just at Colorado, but Clemson, Georgia, South Carolina, the teams that and the schools that have a lot of resources, partnerships, they actively recruit a lot of students. South Carolina has a sports media major, I think, right? Yeah. And that alone is a huge support and bonus for them. They can really funnel students into their program and really put out amazing content. And that it helps when you have supportive coaches as well. Dion has Colorado, and Coach Beamer has South Carolina. I remember late in the season last year, they do every team does the awards, and Beamer gave the award to their creative team. That's just a huge morale booster, which causes them to want to work and put out even better content. And I think that's a huge thing.
No, definitely.
So I guess the last question here is, what are some things that need to change, and how can that change be brought about within this student work or media and athletics?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I was to sit back and say what needs to change, I would probably focus on just the overall foundation and the aspect of it. Not every school is like JMU, like South Carolina, like Clemson. Not every school is given the opportunity to be, to have equipment, to have resources. So if I was to say, it would be to just overall invest more in it. You see so much with the rise of social media, with content being online. That's really what is driving the numbers today. That's getting athletes to come to your school, stuff like that. That's big stuff with the NIL nowadays. So having resources, having the ability to sit there and say, I have a big team, we can capture whatever content you need. I think just having the resources to do it, I think that's major.
And I mean, to piggyback, I think like the basis, like recruiting and investing not just resources but time into your team, like really teaching them, because even if you may not have all the resources that we have at JMU and all the other and some of the other big schools, if your students know how to set certain settings, they know where to be positioned to get a shot, you really try to invest and let their creative juices flow, then you're going to get better content out of it, even if you don't have all the equipment that some of the other schools have. Like, I know for me personally, when I didn't have as nice of equipment, like I learned the settings of my camera, and it made my stuff look so much better when I had the nice equipment. I mean,
I mean, it's equipment's a big thing, but resources and just having the overall identity of
adding value.
Exactly.
Adding
value to it. Exactly.
Well, thank you both for joining me today, and thank you all for watching. Continue to watch every Sunday and Wednesday for more episodes.